The ship moved through the darkness of space like a ghost. No light escaped its hull. No energy signature betrayed its presence. The vessel, called the Whisper of Prometheus, had been designed for one purpose only: to watch without being seen. Commander Yuki Tanaka stood at the observation deck and looked out at the stars. She was a small woman with gray streaks in her black hair. 11 months in deep space had put lines on her face that had not been there before. She was tired. They were all tired, but their mission was not finished yet. "Commander," said Lieutenant Chen from his station, "the fleet has arrived." Tanaka turned away from the stars. She walked to the main display where her crew had gathered. 30 men and women in dark uniforms watched the screens with careful eyes. On those screens, dozens of massive ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel. They appeared in the empty space above a blue and green world like predators surrounding wounded prey. "How many ships?" Tanaka asked. 47 capital vessels," Chen replied, "plus support craft. It is a full compliance fleet." The word made Tanaka's stomach turn. Compliance. Such a clean word for such a dirty thing. She had read the reports. She had seen what happened to worlds that received a visit from a compliance fleet. The lucky ones surrendered quickly. The unlucky ones learned what the Galactic Concord did to species who refused to submit. "What do we know about the planet?" she asked. Officer Amara Osei pulled up the data on her screen. She was young, the youngest on the ship, with dark skin and bright eyes that had grown duller over the past 11 months. "The world is called Velith, 3 inches, Concord records," Osei said. "Population approximately 2 billion. The dominant species are reptilian, in nature. Bronze-colored skin. They live in agricultural communities for the most part. Technology level is pre-spaceflight. They only discovered radio wave communication about 40 years ago. Pre-spaceflight," Tanaka repeated. The word felt heavy in her mouth. "They cannot even leave their own world yet." "No, Commander, they are decades away from their first orbital launch at minimum." Tanaka looked at the compliance fleet on the screen. 47 warships. Weapons that could crack continents. Shields that could withstand nuclear fire. All of this aimed at a species that still thought the stars were just pretty lights in their night sky. "Why?" she asked. "Why does the Concord care about a pre-spaceflight world?" Chen worked his console for a moment. His face grew darker as he read the intercepted communications. "The Velith system contains significant deposits of certain rare minerals," he said. "The Concord has designated this system as strategically valuable. They wish to establish mining operations on the outer planets and moons. The presence of a native species on the third planet is considered an inconvenience." "An inconvenience," Tanaka said. 2 billion lives. "The Concord will offer them integration first," Chen continued. "Standard procedure. The Velithians will be given the choice to join the Concord as a labor species. They will work the mines. Their world will be restructured to serve Concord needs. Their culture, their history, their identity all will be erased over time and replaced with Concord standards." "And if they refuse?" Chen did not answer. He did not need to. Everyone on the bridge knew what happened to species who refused the Concord's generous offer of integration. The Whisper of Prometheus had been observing the Galactic Concord for 11 months, but humanity as a whole had been watching for much longer. 200 years of silent observation from the shadows of space. 200 years of learning the truth about the galaxy. The Concord controlled most of the Orion Arm. 4,000 species under one government. It sounded impressive until you understood how that government worked. The strong ruled. The weak served, and those who would not serve were removed from existence entirely. It was a simple philosophy. The Concord believed that resources were limited, and therefore only the strong deserved to survive. Weakness was treated as a crime against nature itself. Humanity had discovered the Concord in the year 2641. A deep space probe had intercepted Concord communications. Scientists had decoded the language, and then the governments of Earth had realized the terrible truth. They were not alone in the universe, and the universe was not friendly. In those early days, humanity had been weak. Their ships were slow. Their weapons were primitive. If the Concord had found Earth, humanity would have been given the same choice as every other weak species: submit or die. So humanity made a different choice. They chose to hide. For 200 years, human civilization grew in secret. They built their ships. They developed their weapons. They expanded to new worlds, always staying in the shadows, always watching, never revealing themselves. The technology gap that had once terrified Earth's leaders slowly closed. Then it reversed. Human science moved in directions the Concorde had never considered. Human engineers solved problems the Concorde did not even know existed, and still humanity hid. The doctrine was clear. Observe. Never interfere. Never reveal. Learn everything. Trust nothing. Wait. But waiting was hard when you had to watch innocent people die. On the screens, the compliance fleet moved into orbital positions around Vela 3. Tanaka could see the planet clearly now. Blue oceans, green continents, clouds swirling in weather patterns. It looked like Earth. It probably smelled like Earth too, if you were standing on its surface. And somewhere down there, 2 billion people were going about their daily lives, completely unaware that their future had just arrived in orbit. "We are receiving a broadcast from the lead Concorde vessel," Ose said. "It appears to be a general announcement intended for the planet's surface. Let us hear it." The speakers crackled with static, then cleared. A voice spoke in a language that the ship's computers translated instantly. The voice was deep and cold and utterly without emotion. "Attention, inhabitants of this world. You have been selected for integration into the Galactic Concorde. This is an honor beyond your comprehension. Your primitive species will be elevated to serve a greater purpose. Representatives of the Concorde will land on your surface within one planetary rotation. You will present yourselves for processing. You will comply with all instructions given by Concorde officials. Resistance will result in corrective measures. This message will repeat." The transmission ended. Then it began again. The same words. The same cold voice. It would keep playing until the Concorde grew tired of waiting for an answer. "Do the Velithians even understand what is happening?" Amara Ose asked. Her voice was quiet. "They have never met aliens before. They probably do not even believe aliens exist. And now this. It does not matter if they understand," Chen said. "The Concorde does not care. They will give the Velithians one day to respond. Maybe 2. Then they will begin corrective measures." Corrective measures. Another clean word for a dirty thing. The hours passed slowly. The whisper of Prometheus maintained its position, cloaked and silent. The crew watched and recorded everything. That was their mission. Observe and report. Collect data. Send it back to Earth. Let the politicians and generals decide what to do with the information. But the information never led to action. Humanity had been watching the Concorde commit atrocities for 200 years. They had files on 847 integration actions. They had recorded the extinction of species. They had documented everything in careful detail, and they had done nothing. Tanaka understood why. She truly did. Humanity was not ready for a war with the Concorde. The Concorde had numbers beyond counting. They had thousands of worlds. They had fleets that could darken the sky of any planet. Yes, human technology was advanced. Yes, human weapons were powerful. But was it enough? Could 30 billion humans really stand against a civilization of hundreds of trillions? The doctrine said no. The doctrine said wait, build more ships, develop more weapons, grow stronger, and someday, when the time was right, humanity would reveal itself from a position of absolute strength. Someday, always someday, never today. On the planet below, the sun rose over the largest Velithian city. Tanaka watched through long-range sensors as bronze-skinned people emerged from their homes. They walked to markets and workshops and schools. Children played in the streets. Parents called them inside for meals. Old people sat in the sun and talked about the old days. It was morning like any other morning, except that today there were new lights in the sky. Lights that did not move like stars. Lights that hung in place and watched. The Velithians noticed. Of course they noticed. 2 billion people looked up and saw the compliance fleet in their sky and tried to understand what they were seeing. "They are broadcasting again," Ose reported. "Surface communications are exploding with traffic. They are afraid. They are very afraid." "What are they saying?" Ose listened for a moment. Her face grew sad. "They are praying, Commander. They think the lights are gods. They are praying for mercy." The day passed. Night fell on the Velithian capital. The lights in the sky remained. At dawn on the second day, the compliance fleet began its corrective measures. It started with the smaller cities. Kinetic weapons fell from orbit at tremendous speed. They struck the ground with the force of nuclear bombs but left no radiation. Buildings became craters. Streets became rivers of molten stone. People became ashes so fine that the wind carried them away in moments. The whisper of Prometheus recorded everything, every impact, every death, every city that vanished in fire and thunder. They are not even giving the Velithians a chance to respond, Chen said. His voice was thick with anger. The deadline has not passed yet. They are just killing them. The Concord does not need a reason, Tanaka said. She felt hollow inside. Empty. How many times had she watched this happen? How many species had she seen burn while humanity hid in the shadows? Commander. Osei's voice was barely a whisper. I am intercepting a transmission from the surface. From the capital city. It appears to be a broadcast of some kind. Show me. The screen flickered. An image appeared. A Velithian home. Simple furniture. Walls decorated with what looked like children's drawings. And in the center of the room, a Velithian woman holding two small children in her arms. Her bronze scales were pale with fear. Her eyes were wide and wet with tears, but her voice was steady as she sang to her children. The universal translator rendered the words perfectly. It was a lullaby. A simple song about the stars and the night and how everything would be bright again when morning came. The mother sang it softly, rocking her children, trying to give them comfort in their final moments. Through the window behind them, the sky was on fire. The transmission cut to static. The city was gone. Tanaka stood frozen at the display. The lullaby echoed in her ears. She thought about her own mother singing to her when she was small. She thought about her daughter back on Earth who was just learning to sing herself. How many? She asked. 12 million in that city alone, Chen said. Total casualties so far are approaching 80 million. The compliance fleet shows no signs of stopping. 80 million. 80 million people who had never harmed anyone. 80 million people whose only crime was living on a planet that the Concord wanted. 80 million voices silenced forever. And humanity would do nothing. That was the doctrine. Observe and report. Never interfere. Never reveal. Commander. Amara Osei stepped forward. She was young and afraid, but there was steel in her voice. How long do we just watch? How long do we let this happen? Tanaka looked at her young officer. She looked at the rest of her crew. 30 men and women who had chosen to serve in the darkness of space because they believed in something greater than themselves. They believed in humanity's potential. They believed that someday things would be different. What if someday was today? Tanaka thought about the doctrine. She thought about her orders. She thought about the massive Concord fleet in orbit and the small human ship hiding in its shadow. She thought about a mother singing to her children as the world ended around them. Lieutenant Chen, she said. Her voice was calm. How long until reinforcements could arrive if I send an emergency signal? Chen blinked in surprise. Commander, the nearest human fleet is the 23rd Patrol Group. They could arrive in approximately 3 hours at maximum speed. How many ships? 27 vessels. All combat rated. Tanaka nodded slowly. 28 ships, including the Prometheus. Against 47 Concord capital vessels. The numbers were not good. But human ships were not Concord ships. Human weapons were not Concord weapons. And human soldiers were not Concord soldiers. Send the signal, she said. Emergency priority. Full combat deployment. The bridge went silent. Everyone stared at their commander with shock in their eyes. Commander, Chen said carefully. This will violate every protocol we have. This will reveal humanity to the Concord. There will be no going back. I know. The consequences could be catastrophic. We could be starting a war. I know. Tanaka looked at the burning world on her screen. She looked at the compliance fleet still firing its weapons into helpless cities. Send the signal, she repeated. Humanity has hidden in the darkness for 200 years. We became strong because we were afraid of what the universe might do to us if it found us. But we did not become strong just to hide forever. We became strong so that someday, when it mattered, we could stand up and say enough. She turned to face her crew. Her eyes were hard and bright. Today it matters. Today we say enough. Send the signal. Lieutenant Chen nodded slowly. His hands moved across his console. Somewhere in the deep darkness of space, a message began its journey. Emergency. All ships. Come now. Tanaka looked one more time at the burning world called Velith 3. Help was coming. The whisper of Prometheus waited in the darkness while the world below burned. Commander Yuki Tanaka stood at the center of her bridge and watched the countdown on the main display. 2 hours and 43 minutes until reinforcements arrived. 2 hours and 43 minutes of silence and shadows while the compliance fleet continued its work of destruction. On the planet's surface, the death toll had passed 100 million. Cities that had stood for centuries vanished in moments. Libraries full of ancient knowledge became dust. Temples where generations had prayed became craters. And still the fire fell from the sky. "They are methodical," Lieutenant Chen observed. His voice was flat and cold. "They are destroying all major population centers first. Then they will move to the smaller towns and villages. Standard Concord integration protocol for hostile species." "Hostile," Tanaka repeated. "The Velithians never fired a single weapon. They do not have weapons that could reach orbit. They could not hurt the Concord fleet, even if they wanted to. That does not matter. The Concord considers any species that does not immediately surrender to be hostile. The Velithians waited too long. They asked too many questions. They tried to negotiate. That was enough." Tanaka closed her eyes for a moment. She thought about the long history that had led to this moment. The history of humanity's relationship with the stars. When the first radio signals from the Galactic Concord had reached Earth in 2641, humanity had celebrated. They were not alone. The universe was full of life and intelligence and wonder. Scientists danced in their laboratories. Politicians made speeches about a new era of cosmic brotherhood. Children dreamed of meeting aliens and exploring distant worlds. The celebration lasted exactly 17 days. That was how long it took the linguists to decode enough of the Concord's communications to understand what kind of civilization they had discovered. The Concord was not a brotherhood. It was a hierarchy. At the top sat the Dominion species and their closest allies. These were the rulers, the masters, the ones who decided the fate of all others. Below them were the integrated species, thousands of civilizations that had been conquered and absorbed over millions of years. These species served the Concord in whatever capacity the Dominion required. Workers, soldiers, servants, slaves in all but name. At the bottom were the uncontacted species. Primitive civilizations that had not yet been discovered and given the choice. Integrate or die. Earth was an uncontacted world. Humanity was a primitive species, and the Concord had very specific protocols for dealing with primitives who refused to accept their place in the galactic order. Tanaka remembered learning about the panic years in her history classes, the decade after the discovery, when humanity nearly destroyed itself in fear. Nations blamed each other for attracting alien attention. Wars erupted over resources and territory. Religious movements proclaimed the end of days. Suicide rates climbed as people lost hope, but humanity did not break. Somehow, despite everything, they found a way forward. The nations of Earth put aside their differences. They formed the United Terran Sovereignty, a single government for all of humanity. They agreed on a plan that seemed insane at the time but was really the only option that made sense. They would hide. If the Concord found Earth, humanity would die. So humanity would make sure the Concord never found them. They would build ships that could not be detected. They would develop technology in secret. They would expand into the galaxy like ghosts, settling worlds the Concord had overlooked, always staying in the shadows. And they would watch. They would learn everything about their enemy. They would study Concord technology and find ways to counter it. They would prepare for the day when hiding was no longer possible. That day had always seemed far away. "Someday," the leader said. "Someday we will be strong enough. Someday we will reveal ourselves. Someday we will change things." Tanaka had spent her entire career serving the doctrine of someday. She had watched 3 integration actions before this one. She had recorded the deaths of millions and sent the data back to Earth where it would be filed and studied and ultimately do nothing. But the mother singing to her children had broken something inside her. That lullaby had been the final weight that tipped the scale. "Commander." Amara Ose looked up from her console. "I am detecting changes in the compliance fleet formation. Several vessels are breaking orbit. Where are they going?" "The largest continent. There are still some major population centers there that have not been struck yet. They appear to be sending landing craft. Ground forces. The orbital bombardment was just the beginning. Now the Concord would send soldiers to deal with the survivors. They would round up the Velithians who had escaped the fire from the sky. They would sort them into categories: useful and useless. The useful ones would be shipped off to labor camps. The useless ones would be eliminated. "How long until our fleet arrives?" Tanaka asked. 2 hours and 31 minutes. Too long. Far too long. Millions more would die before help arrived. Tanaka made a decision. Helm, she said. Take us down. Put us between the landing craft and the planet's surface. The helm officer, a thin man named Marcus Webb, turned to stare at her. Commander, that would require us to decloak. The Concorde will see us. I know. We are one ship against 47. They will destroy us. Perhaps. Perhaps not. But we will not hide in the darkness while innocents die beneath us. Take us down. Webb hesitated for only a moment. Then he turned back to his console. Aye, Commander. Taking us down. The whisper of Prometheus began to move. The ship slid through the void toward the planet below, toward the swarm of landing craft descending through the atmosphere. Tanaka watched the distance close on her display. When we decloak, she said, I want a full broadcast on all frequencies. Every ship in this system needs to hear what I have to say. Understood, Chen replied. Broadcast ready on your command. Tanaka straightened her uniform. She brushed a strand of gray hair from her face. She took a deep breath. Now, the cloak fell away. For the first time in 200 years, a human vessel revealed itself to the Galactic Concorde. The whisper of Prometheus appeared in the space between the landing craft and the burning world. It was a small ship compared to the massive Concorde vessels. Dark gray hull, sharp angles, no visible weapons, though the weapons were certainly there. On the bridge, Tanaka began to speak. Attention, Concorde Fleet. This is Commander Yuki Tanaka, of the United Terran Sovereignty vessel Whisper of Prometheus. The world you are attacking is now under human protection. You will cease all hostile operations immediately. You will withdraw your forces from this system. This is not a request. This is a demand. Silence. Then the communications console erupted with incoming signals. They are scanning us, Chen reported. Multiple ships attempting to identify our vessel type. They are not finding us in their databases. Of course they were not. Human ships existed nowhere in Concorde records. For 2 centuries, humanity had been nothing but shadows and whispers. Rumors that were dismissed as impossible. Sensor ghosts that were blamed on equipment malfunctions. Until now, a response came through the speakers. The voice was deep and rough, filled with contempt. Unknown vessel. I am Admiral Vethkal of the Dominion, commander of this compliance fleet. I do not know what species you represent, or what backwater world produced you. But you have made a fatal error. This system belongs to the Galactic Concorde. This planet belongs to the Galactic Concorde. You will surrender your ship immediately or be destroyed. Tanaka smiled. It was not a happy smile. Admiral Vethkal, I represent the human species of the planet Earth. You have never heard of us because we did not wish to be heard. We have watched your Concorde for 200 of our years. We have seen what you do to species you consider weak. We have recorded your crimes, and we have decided that your crimes will stop today. A pause. Then Vethkal laughed. It was an ugly sound. 1 ship. You come to challenge a compliance fleet with 1 ship. You are either mad or stupid. Perhaps both. Very well. You will serve as an example to any other primitives who think they can challenge Concorde authority. I would not recommend that course of action, Admiral. And why not? Because I am not alone. Tanaka nodded to Chen. Signal the fleet. 27 more vessels decloaked. They appeared all around the compliance fleet in perfect formation. 27 ships that had been waiting in the darkness, invisible and silent, for the past several minutes. The 23rd Patrol Group had arrived ahead of schedule. On the Concorde vessels, alarms began to sound. Admiral, Chen said with satisfaction in his voice. I am reading significant power fluctuations in multiple Concorde ships. Their crews are panicking. They are trying to raise shields and charge weapons, but our electronic warfare systems have already penetrated their networks. They are experiencing system failures across their fleet. Vethkal's voice came through the speakers again. This time there was less contempt and more uncertainty. How is this possible? Our sensors detected nothing. Our security systems detected nothing. How did you do this? We have had 200 years to study your technology, Admiral. We know its strengths. More importantly, we know its weaknesses. Your Concorde believes itself to be the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. That belief is incorrect. You are bluffing. You must be bluffing. 28 ships cannot defeat 47 capital vessels. Then call our bluff, Admiral. Attack us. See what happens. Silence. On the display, Tanaka could see the Concorde ships holding position. They were afraid. They had never encountered an unknown species with technology they could not understand. Their entire worldview was built on the assumption that the Concorde was superior to all others. That assumption was crumbling. "Commander," Osei said quietly, "the landing craft have stopped their descent. They are holding position in the upper atmosphere, awaiting orders. The orbital bombardment has also ceased," Chen added. "All Concorde weapons have gone silent." Tanaka felt something loosen in her chest. For now, at least, the killing had stopped. "Admiral Vethkal," she said, "I will give you one opportunity to withdraw. Take your fleet and leave this system. Report to your superiors that humanity exists, and that we will not tolerate the destruction of innocent species. This is your only warning. You dare to give orders to the Dominion?" Vethkal's voice was rising with anger. "You dare to threaten the Galactic Concord? Do you have any idea what forces we can bring to bear against you?" "Yes, we do. We have studied your military capabilities extensively. We know exactly how many ships you can deploy. We know your fleet compositions and your tactical doctrines. We know the locations of your shipyards and your supply lines. We probably know more about your military than most of your own officers do. Then you know you cannot win. One species against 4,000. One civilization against the entire galaxy. We shall see. But that is a question for another day. Today, the only question is whether you withdraw or whether we destroy your fleet. Choose quickly, Admiral. My patience is limited. More silence." Tanaka could imagine the debate happening on the Concorde flagship. Vethkal was a proud creature. He would not want to retreat in the face of an inferior force, but he was also seeing his ship's systems fail. He was watching unknown vessels appear from nowhere. He was facing something outside his experience. Fear was a powerful motivator. "Very well," Vethkal finally said. His voice was thick with suppressed rage. "We will withdraw. For now. But this is not over, human. The Concorde will learn of what happened here. And when we return, we will come with 1,000 ships. 10,000 ships. We will find your precious Earth, and we will burn it to ash. That is my promise." "Your promise is noted," Tanaka replied calmly. "Now leave." The compliance fleet began to move. One by one, the massive vessels turned away from Velith 3 and activated their faster-than-light drives. They vanished into the darkness of space like ghosts fleeing the dawn. In less than an hour, they were gone. Only the human ships remained. Tanaka let out a long breath. Her hands were shaking. She had just changed history. She had revealed humanity to the galaxy. There would be consequences beyond anything she could imagine. But on the planet below, the fire had stopped falling. "Open a channel to the Velithian surface," she said. "Widest possible broadcast. I want every survivor to hear this." "Channel open, Commander." Tanaka thought carefully about her words. What do you say to a species that has just experienced the end of their world? What comfort can you offer to people who have lost everything? People of Velith 3. My name is Yuki Tanaka. I represent a species called humanity. We come from a world far from here. A world you have never heard of and could not see in your night sky. We have been watching the galaxy for a long time. We have seen the Concorde destroy many worlds like yours. We have watched in silence because we were afraid. Today, we stopped being afraid. Today, we chose to act. The Concorde fleet has withdrawn. They will not return soon. In that time, we will help you rebuild. We will share our technology with you. We will protect you. You are not alone anymore. You never have to be alone again. She paused. On the screens, she could see sensor data from the planet's surface. Velithians were emerging from hiding places. They were looking up at the sky where the fire had stopped and the strange new lights hung motionless. We cannot undo what was done to you, Tanaka continued. We cannot bring back the ones you lost. All we can offer is a future where no one will ever do this to you again. If you want that future, we will build it together. She closed the channel. The bridge was silent. Her crew was staring at her with expressions of awe and fear and hope. Commander, Chen said quietly. What happens now? Tanaka looked at the blue and green world that filled her view screen. Half of it was dark with smoke. Cities still burned. Millions were dead, but millions more were still alive. Now, she said, we begin. Contact Earth. Tell them what we have done. Tell them the hiding is over. Tell them it is time for humanity to step into the light. The message went out into the darkness. And across the galaxy, things began to change. Admiral Vethkal of the Dominion had lived for 300 standard years. He had commanded fleets that conquered entire star systems. He had watched species bow before the might of the Galactic Concord. He had never known defeat, until today. His flagship, the Eternal Supremacy, drifted in space at the edge of the Velith system. The ship that had struck fear into hundreds of worlds was now dark and silent. Power systems had failed. Weapons were offline. Engines were dead. Even the emergency lighting flickered uncertainly. Vethkal sat in his command chair and tried to understand what had happened. The battle, if it could be called a battle, had lasted 11 minutes. It began when he gave the order to destroy the human vessels. A compliance fleet at full strength against 28 unknown ships. The mathematics were simple. Victory was certain. Then the humans fired their weapons. Vethkal had seen many weapons in his long career. Plasma cannons that could melt through armor. Kinetic accelerators that could punch holes in moons. Nuclear warheads that could sterilize planets. He thought he knew everything about warfare in the galaxy. He knew nothing. The human weapons seemed to ignore shields entirely. Energy beams passed through defensive barriers as if they did not exist. Concord ships began to die in the first 30 seconds. 5 vessels vanished in brilliant flashes of light. Then 10 more. Then 15. Vethkal ordered evasive maneuvers. His helm officer reported that navigation systems were no longer responding. He ordered emergency shield reinforcement. His tactical officer reported that shield generators were shutting down one by one. He ordered a retreat to faster than light speed. His engineer reported that the FTL drive had been somehow disabled. The humans had seized control of his ship without ever boarding it. Their electronic warfare capabilities were beyond anything the Concord had ever encountered. Every system the Eternal Supremacy possessed was now under human command. The rest of the compliance fleet fared no better. Within 11 minutes, half the fleet was destroyed. The other half was disabled, drifting helplessly in the void while human vessels moved among them like predators examining their catch. 300 years of victories. 300 years of absolute confidence in Concord superiority. All of it erased in 11 minutes. A chime sounded at the communications console. One of the few systems still functioning. "Admiral," his communications officer said. Her voice was shaking. "The humans are hailing us. They wish to speak with you." "What do they want?" "They wish to board our vessel. They say they want to talk." Vethkal laughed bitterly. Of course they did. They would board his ship and execute him in front of his crew. That was how the Concord did things. He assumed the humans would be no different. "Tell them to come. There is nothing I can do to stop them anyway." The humans arrived within the hour. A small shuttle detached from the vessel called Whisper of Prometheus and flew to the Eternal Supremacy's main hangar. The hangar doors opened automatically, more evidence that the humans controlled his ship completely. Vethkal gathered the senior officers who had survived and went to meet his executioners. The human shuttle was small and angular and completely black. Its surface seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The boarding ramp lowered with a soft hiss. Commander Yuki Tanaka walked down the ramp alone. She was tiny. Vethkal stood nearly 3 meters tall. The human woman barely reached his chest. She had dark hair with streaks of gray and a face that showed signs of age and fatigue. She wore a simple uniform with no medals or decorations. This was the creature that had humiliated the Dominion? "Admiral Vethkal," Tanaka said. Her voice was calm and quiet. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me. I was not aware I had a choice. You always have choices. You chose to attack a defenseless world. You chose to murder millions of innocent people. You chose to fight us when we asked you to withdraw. Those were your choices. Now I'm giving you another one." "What choice is that?" "The choice of how I wish to die?" Tanaka tilted her head slightly. "Why would I kill you?" Vethkal stared at her. "Because that is what one does with defeated enemies. That is how war works. You kill the leaders of those you conquer. You destroy their ability to resist. You make examples of them. Is that what the Concord does? It is what all civilizations do. The strong dominate the weak die or serve. This is the natural order of things." Tanaka nodded slowly. She reached into her uniform and pulled out a small device. A display screen of some kind. She held it up so that Vethkal could see. Images began to play. Images from the surface of Velith 3. The cities burning. The bodies in the streets. The survivors, screaming and running and dying. And then, clear as crystal, the recording of a Velithian mother singing to her children while fire consumed the world outside her window. The lullaby played in the silent hangar. Every Dominion officer heard it. Some of them looked away. Others did not react at all. They had seen such things before. They had caused such things before. Why? Tanaka asked. Vethkal did not understand the question. Why what? Why did you do this? What did the Velithians do to deserve extermination? They refused integration. They did not refuse. You gave them less than 2 days to respond to first contact with alien life. They were confused and frightened. They asked for time to understand what was happening. That is not refusal. That is a reasonable request. The Concord does not wait for primitives to understand. We act. That is our strength. Tanaka put the device away. She looked at Vethkal with an expression he could not read. Sadness, perhaps, or disappointment. You genuinely believe that, do you not? You genuinely believe that killing innocent people is strength, that cruelty is power, that the ability to destroy makes you superior. It is not belief. It is fact. The universe has limited resources. Only the strong deserve to survive. This is the fundamental truth of existence. We disagree. Those 2 words hung in the air. Vethkal felt something cold move through him. Not fear exactly. Something worse than fear. The beginning of doubt. You disagree, he repeated. Your species disagrees with the fundamental truth of the universe. Yes, we do. Tanaka took a step closer. She was so small, so fragile looking, and yet there was something in her eyes that made Vethkal want to step back. We believe that strength means the ability to protect, not the ability to destroy. We believe that power carries responsibility, not privilege. We believe that every thinking being has value regardless of how useful they are to those above them. Those are the beliefs of prey, the beliefs of the weak, perhaps. And yet here we stand. Your fleet is destroyed. Your ship is disabled. Your weapons are useless. You are completely at our mercy. Tanaka spread her hands. If strength is the only thing that matters, Admiral, then we are the strong ones now. Does that mean our beliefs are correct? Vethkal had no answer. His worldview did not allow for this possibility. The Concord was supposed to be the strongest. The Concord was supposed to be unbeatable. That was why their philosophy was correct. But the humans had proven themselves stronger. Did that mean? No. He could not think that way. He would not think that way. What do you want from me? He asked. I want you to understand. I want you to take a message back to your Concord. I want you to tell them that humanity exists, that we have been watching for 200 years, that we know everything about them, their strengths, their weaknesses, their secrets, and I want you to tell them that the age of compliance is over. They will not listen. They will send more fleets, larger fleets. They will find your homeworld and burn it to dust. Let them try. Tanaka smiled. It was a sad smile, but there was steel beneath it. We have been preparing for this moment for 2 centuries. Every human child learns to fight. Every human world is fortified. Every human ship is built for war. Your Concord thinks we are primitives who stumbled into technology beyond our understanding. They are wrong. We understand our technology very well. We designed it specifically to defeat you. That is impossible. No species could remain hidden from the Concord for so long. No species could develop such advanced weapons in secret. And yet, we did. Because we had to. Because when we discovered what kind of galaxy we lived in, we knew that survival would require sacrifice. Our grandparents gave up their dreams of peaceful expansion so that their grandchildren could build warships. Our parents lived in hiding so that we could learn to strike from shadows. We gave up 200 years of normal civilization so that when this day came, we would be ready. Tanaka turned and looked at the Dominion officers behind Vethkal. Most of them would not meet her eyes. You are not evil, she said. Not as individuals. You are products of a culture that taught you evil things were good. You were raised to believe that cruelty was normal, that the suffering of the weak was natural. That is not your fault, but it is your responsibility. You can choose to be different. You can choose to be better. The Dominion will never accept such weakness, one of the officers said. Then the Dominion will fall. Not today, perhaps not tomorrow, but eventually. Because here is the truth that your Concord never understood. Cruelty is not strength. Fear is not respect. Domination is not leadership. Empires built on the bones of the innocent always collapse. Always. It is only a matter of time. Tanaka walked back toward her shuttle. At the ramp, she turned one more time. I am restoring partial power to your vessel. Life support, basic propulsion, and communications. You will be able to reach conquered space in approximately 3 weeks. Use that time to think about what I have said. And when you reach your masters, tell them this: humanity is no longer hiding. We are watching. And if the Concorde ever attacks another innocent world, we will not simply defend that world. We will come for the Concorde itself. She walked up the ramp. The shuttle sealed itself and lifted off the hangar deck. Moments later, it was gone. Vethkal stood in the silent hangar for a long time. His officers waited for orders. None came. He was thinking about a mother singing to her children. He was thinking about the look in Tanaka's eyes when she asked why. He was thinking about what she had said about strength and cruelty and the fall of empires. He was thinking, for the first time in 300 years, that perhaps he had been wrong. 2 weeks later, Vethkal's ship limped into conquered space. The news he carried spread like wildfire. Humanity, a species hidden for 200 years, technology that could defeat compliance fleets. A warning delivered with quiet confidence. The Concorde had ruled the Orion Arm for millions of years. They had crushed every species that challenged them. They believed themselves invincible. Now, for the first time, they were afraid. And across the galaxy, in the dark places where the conquered species huddled and survived, that fear was noticed. Hope, long since dead, began to stir again. Change was coming. The Hall of 10,000 Species was the greatest building in the galaxy. It rose from the surface of Axis Prime like a mountain made of glass and light. Inside, 10,000 platforms floated in perfect geometric arrangement. Each platform represented one of the species that had been integrated into the Galactic Concorde. Each platform had a place in the vast hierarchy that governed all known civilization. At the very top, in a ring of golden platforms that overlooked all others, sat the High Speakers. These were the leaders of the Dominion species and their closest allies. They were the masters of the Concorde. Their word was law. Today, the hall was full. Every platform was occupied. Every species had sent representatives. The air hummed with thousands of translator devices, turning 10,000 languages into one. They had all come to see the humans. Ambassador Chen Wei-Lin walked across the main floor of the hall with measured steps. She was a tall woman with silver hair and calm eyes. Behind her walked 11 other humans in formal diplomatic dress. They carried no weapons. They wore no armor. They were completely vulnerable, and yet the hall was silent. 10,000 species watched the tiny human delegation cross the vast floor, and not one of them dared to speak. Wei-Lin reached the central speaking platform. It was a disk of white stone that rose slowly into the air, until she stood at eye level with the High Speakers in their golden ring. The first High Speaker leaned forward. He was a Dominion, ancient and massive, his scales the deep purple that indicated royal blood. His name was Keth Varone, and he had ruled the Concorde for 5,000 years. "You are the humans," he said. His voice echoed through the hall. "I am Ambassador Chen Wei-Lin. I speak for the United Terran Sovereignty. We have never heard of your species. We have never encountered your ships. We have no record of your world in our databases. Yet you claim to have observed us for 200 years. Explain yourself." Wei-Lin smiled slightly. "We did not wish to be found, so we made certain that we were not found. That is impossible. The Concorde has mapped every system in the Orion Arm. We have catalogued every species. Nothing escapes our attention. Many things escaped your attention, High Speaker. You believed you were the greatest civilization in the galaxy. You believed no one could challenge your power. You believed that your way of doing things was the only way. These were all errors." A murmur ran through the hall. No species had ever spoken to the High Speakers with such blunt honesty. "You destroyed a compliance fleet," Keth Varone said. 47 ships, thousands of Dominion warriors. You murdered them. We defended a world you were attempting to destroy. Your fleet fired first. Your admiral refused our request to withdraw. We acted in protection of innocent lives. The Velithians are primitives. They have no value. Their world was designated for integration. You had no right to interfere. We disagree with your assessment of value. High Speaker. And we have the power to enforce our disagreement. Another murmur. This one was louder, angrier. Some of the high speakers were rising from their seats in outrage. Wei Lin raised her hand. Before you respond with threats, I suggest you review the tactical data we have provided your security forces. Your defense network commanders have been studying it for the past 3 hours. I believe they have reached some concerning conclusions. One of the high speakers, a creature from a species Wei Lin did not recognize, touched a console on her platform. A holographic display appeared in the center of the hall. It showed Axis Prime from orbit. The planet was surrounded by the greatest concentration of military power in the galaxy. Defense platforms, battle stations, thousands of warships, enough firepower to destroy entire star systems, and moving among them, marked in red on the display, were 17 human vessels. They had been there for days, hidden, watching, completely undetected by conquered sensors until the humans chose to reveal themselves. Your defense network did not see them, Wei Lin said. Your ships did not see them. Your orbital platforms did not see them. 17 vessels sitting in the heart of your most protected system, and you had no idea they were there until we told you. Silence. The kind of silence that comes when everything you believed is suddenly proven wrong. We are not here to threaten you, Wei Lin continued. We are not here to demand surrender. We are here to explain some things and to make a request. Whether you choose to listen is up to you. Kethvaran recovered his composure. Speak then. We will hear your words, even if we do not accept them. Wei Lin nodded. She took a breath. This was the moment she had been preparing for her entire life. The moment humanity would explain itself to the galaxy. My species is called human. We come from a world called Earth, approximately 4,000 light-years from here. We are young by conquered standards. Our recorded history spans only about 10,000 years. We developed spaceflight technology approximately 600 years ago. Young indeed, one of the high speakers sneered. Barely civilized. We discovered the conquered in the year we call 2641. We intercepted your communications. We decoded your languages. And we learned the truth about how the galaxy works. Wei Lin paused. She looked around the hall at the 10,000 species watching her. We learned that the conquered operates on a simple principle. The strong rule, the weak serve, and those who resist are destroyed. We learned that you have done this for millions of years. We learned that you have exterminated thousands of species who refused to submit to your hierarchy. And we learned that if you found Earth, you would do the same to us. The natural order, Kethvaran said. The universe is harsh. Resources are limited. Only the strong deserve to survive. We have heard that philosophy from Admiral Vethkal. We find it unconvincing. You find the fundamental truth of existence unconvincing? We find your interpretation of that truth unconvincing. Wei Lin touched her own console. A new display appeared in the hall. Images, recordings, data. This is what we have collected over 200 years of observation. Documentation of 847 integration actions. Records of species extermination. Evidence of systematic genocide against any civilization that refused to bow to Concord authority. The images were terrible. Burning worlds, mass graves. Entire populations marched to processing centers and never seen again. Children separated from parents. Cultures erased. Languages forbidden. Identities destroyed. Some of the species in the hall looked away. Others stared with haunted eyes. Many of them recognized what they were seeing. They had survived it themselves, generations ago. We have done terrible things too, Wei Lin said. Humanity is not innocent. We have fought wars among ourselves. We have committed cruelties that shame us. We have caused suffering that we can never undo. She let that hang in the air for a moment. But we remember those things as crimes. We teach our children about them so they will understand what happens when we forget our values. We do not celebrate our atrocities. We do not build our civilization on the principle that cruelty is natural. Pretty words, Kethvaran said. But words mean nothing. Power means everything. And your power, impressive as it is, cannot match the full might of the Concord. Perhaps not. Perhaps you could eventually defeat us if you committed everything you have. But that would take time. It would require resources. And while you were focused on destroying humanity, other things would happen. Wei Lin gestured at the gathered species around her. 4,000 species serve the Concord. Most of them were conquered. Most of them remember what was done to their ancestors. Most of them hate you. They stay obedient because they believe resistance is hopeless. They believe the Concord cannot be challenged. She smiled. We have just proven that the Concord can be challenged. We have shown that your ships can be destroyed. We have demonstrated that your technology can be beaten. And now every conquered species in this hall is asking themselves the same question. If the humans can fight back, why can we not fight back too? The murmur that ran through the hall was different this time. Not anger, not outrage, something that sounded almost like hope. You are threatening to incite rebellion, Kethvaron said. I am stating a fact. Your Concord is held together by fear. You have just seen that there is something stronger than fear. You can try to destroy us, but you will have to fight on many fronts at once. How many species will take the opportunity to rise up? How many old grudges will resurface? How much of your carefully maintained order will collapse while you are distracted with us? What do you want? The question came from one of the other high speakers. She was younger than Kethvaron, her scales a lighter shade of purple. There was something in her voice that was not quite hostility. I want the killing to stop, Waylon said. No more integration actions, no more compliance fleets, no more extermination of species who refuse to submit. The Concord can continue to exist. We have no desire to rule the galaxy, but the age of casual genocide ends today. Impossible. The entire structure of Concord society is based on, I know what it is based on. I am telling you that it must change. Not because we are threatening you, though we are certainly prepared to back our words with action, but because it is unsustainable. You have made enemies of every species you have conquered. You have created a galaxy full of people who would celebrate your downfall. That is not strength. That is weakness disguised as strength. It is a house built on sand, waiting for a storm. Waylon looked directly at Kethvaron. We are the storm, High Speaker. We did not want to be. We hid for 200 years hoping that things would change on their own. They did not. So now we are here, and we are offering you a choice. Change willingly, or be forced to change. Those are the only options. And if we refuse both, if we fight you with everything we have, then you will probably destroy us eventually. But we will hurt you first. We will hurt you badly. And while you are hurting, the galaxy will be watching. Every conquered species will see that resistance is possible. Every oppressed world will know that the Concord can bleed. You may win the war against humanity, but you will lose everything else. Your empire will crumble. Your legacy will be ashes. Is that what you want? Kethvaron was silent. His ancient eyes studied the human woman standing before him. She was so small, so fragile, so utterly insignificant compared to the vast might of the Concord. And yet, she was not afraid. You truly believe this, he said. You believe that your philosophy is correct. That kindness is stronger than cruelty. That protection is more important than domination. We believe it, yes. But more importantly, we are willing to die for it. Are you willing to die for your philosophy, High Speaker? Are you willing to see your entire civilization burn rather than change? No answer came. But the silence was enough. Waylon touched her ear, listening to a communication from outside the hall. My fleet has just decloaked around your 17 largest military installations, she said. Your defense networks did not detect them until they chose to be seen. We are not dictating terms, High Speaker. We are informing you of new galactic realities. Take whatever time you need to discuss among yourselves. We will wait. She stepped back from the speaking platform and let it slowly descend to the floor. The human delegation gathered around her and walked toward the exit. Behind them, the hall of 10,000 species erupted in chaos. High speakers shouted at each other. Conquered species whispered among themselves. Security forces ran in all directions, trying to respond to reports of human ships appearing at critical installations across conquered space. Waylon did not look back. She had delivered her message. Now the galaxy would decide its own future. She hoped they would choose wisely. She truly did. But if they did not, humanity was ready for that too. The war lasted 3 years. It began when the Dominion rejected humanity's offer of peace. High Speaker Kethvaron declared that the conquered would not bow to the demands of primitives. He called for the total destruction of the human species. He mobilized every fleet, every soldier, every weapon the Concord possessed. He expected a quick victory. He was wrong. Private Kethval of the Dominion ground forces learned how wrong on the 5th day of the Battle of Axis Prime. He had been trained since birth to fight. Every Dominion was. They were the warrior species, the conquerors, the natural rulers of the galaxy. Combat was in their blood. Victory was their destiny. The humans did not seem to understand this. Kethval's unit had been defending a communications hub in the capital city when the humans attacked. There were only 20 of them. 20 small, fragile creatures against 200 Dominion warriors in full battle armor. The fight lasted 4 minutes. The humans moved like shadows. They appeared from nowhere and vanished before you could target them. Their weapons made no sound but left Dominion soldiers dead on the ground. Their armor seemed impossible to penetrate. They worked together with a coordination that looked almost psychic. When it was over, Kethval was the only one left alive. He had been wounded in the first seconds of the fight and had fallen behind a barricade. The humans had walked past him without a second look, more concerned with their objective than with finishing off the wounded. He lay there in his own blood, waiting to die. Then one of the humans came back. It was a female. She knelt beside him and looked at his wounds. She said something in her strange language. A moment later, she was treating him, sealing the wound, stopping the bleeding, giving him medicine for the pain. Why? Kethval asked. His voice was barely a whisper. The human looked at him with calm eyes. She touched a device on her collar, and when she spoke, the words came out in Dominion language. Because you are hurt. Because I can help. Because that is enough reason. I am your enemy. You were my enemy. Now you are my patient. There is a difference. She finished treating his wounds and stood up. More humans were arriving, securing the area. Some of them looked at Kethval with hostility. Others just looked tired. None of them tried to kill him. What happens now? He asked. You will be taken to a medical facility. Your wounds will be fully treated. When you are recovered, you will be given a choice. Return to the Dominion, or stay with us. The choice is yours. The Dominion does not give such choices to prisoners. We know. That is one of the things we are trying to change. The human walked away. Other humans came and lifted Kethval onto a stretcher. They carried him carefully, as if he mattered, as if his life had value. He did not understand. Across the galaxy, the war continued. But it was not the war the Dominion had expected. Human fleets struck at military targets with surgical precision. They destroyed shipyards and weapons factories. They disabled defense platforms and communication networks. They captured strategic systems and fortified them against counterattack. But they did not destroy civilian populations. They did not bomb cities. They did not massacre prisoners. They fought hard and they fought brilliantly. But they did not fight cruelly. The Concord had never encountered an enemy like this. They did not know how to respond, and as the humans advanced, other species began to rise. It started with the Velithians. The survivors of the near extinction had been given human technology and human training. They had rebuilt their world with human help, and when the war began, they volunteered to fight alongside their saviors. Then other species joined. The ones who remembered what the Concord had done to their ancestors. The ones who had been waiting for centuries for a chance to fight back. The ones who had lost hope and suddenly found it again. The galaxy was turning against the Dominion. Everything the High Speakers had feared was coming true. Scholar Vethmara of the Concord Historical Archive spent the war years trying to understand how this had happened. She was not a warrior. She was a researcher, dedicated to preserving the records of conquered history. Her job had always been straightforward. Document the glorious victories of the Dominion and their allies. Celebrate the integration of new species into the galactic order. Record the natural progression of the strong over the weak. Now she was documenting something very different. She spent months studying human records. They had opened their archives to any species willing to read them. They hid nothing. Their history was there for all to see. The wars, the atrocities, the mistakes, the crimes. Humanity had committed terrible acts over its short existence. They admitted this freely, but they also showed how they had changed, how they had learned from their mistakes, how they had built new systems to prevent old crimes from happening again. They were not perfect. They did not claim to be, but they were trying to be better. Vethmara found herself asking questions she had never considered before. Why did the Concord never try to be better? Why did they celebrate cruelty instead of learning from it? Why did they build their entire civilization on the principle that some lives mattered and others did not? She had been taught that this was simply how the universe worked. The strong survived. The weak perished. There was no other way. But the humans had shown that there was another way. They were strong, perhaps the strongest species the galaxy had ever seen, and they had chosen to use that strength for protection instead of domination. If they could make that choice, why could the Concord not make it too? Vethmara began writing a new history. Not a celebration of conquest, but an honest account of what the Concord had done. The species they had destroyed, the cultures they had erased, the billions of lives they had ended because those lives were considered inconvenient. It was not an easy thing to write. It was not an easy thing to read. But it was the truth. And the truth, she had come to believe, was the only foundation on which anything lasting could be built. The war ended not with the extinction of the Dominion, but with their defeat. Human fleets surrounded the core worlds. Human soldiers held the key military installations. Human ships controlled the space lanes that kept conquered civilization functioning. The High Speakers had two choices: surrender or watch their entire species starve. They chose surrender. The terms were not what anyone expected. The humans did not demand slavery. They did not require the destruction of Dominion culture. They did not massacre the leadership or install puppet governments. They demanded justice. The leaders who had ordered genocide would be tried for their crimes. The systems that had enabled those crimes would be dismantled. The species that had been conquered would be given the choice to leave the Concord or stay. And the Dominion would be forced to live with the consequences of what they had done. Some of those consequences were harsh. Keth Varen and the other High Speakers who had ordered integration actions were convicted of crimes against sentient life. They were not executed. The humans did not believe in execution. Instead, they were imprisoned on a world where they could do no more harm. With access to the full historical records of their crimes, they would spend the rest of their long lives learning exactly what they had done. The Dominion people were not punished for the crimes of their leaders. They were allowed to keep their worlds, their culture, their identity. But they were no longer masters of the galaxy. They were simply one species among thousands, equal to all others, with no special privileges and no special powers. Many of them found this unbearable. To have been the rulers of everything and become the rulers of nothing was a humiliation beyond words. Others, like Private Kethval, found it strangely liberating. He had returned to Dominion space after his recovery in the human medical facility. He had expected to be executed as a traitor for accepting human help. Instead, he found a society in chaos, struggling to understand a world where strength no longer meant the right to dominate. He became a teacher. He taught young Dominion about the history their elders had hidden from them. He taught them about the species their ancestors had destroyed. He taught them that there were other ways to be strong. It was difficult work. Many Dominion resisted the new ideas. They clung to the old ways, insisting that cruelty was natural and domination was right. But slowly, generation by generation, things changed. 5 years after the war ended, Admiral Yuki Tanaka returned to Velith 3. She had been promoted many times since that first day when her ship decloaked above a burning world. She had commanded fleets in battle. She had negotiated treaties with hostile species. She had become one of the most famous humans in the galaxy, but she had never forgotten the moment that started everything. The mother singing to her children while fire fell from the sky. The Velithians had rebuilt their world. The cities were new, constructed with a blend of human technology and Velithian design. The population had recovered from the near extinction, though it would take generations to return to what it had been. Life was continuing. Tanaka walked through the capital city without escort. The Velithians knew who she was. They stepped aside as she passed, bowing their bronze-scaled heads in respect. Some of them reached out to touch her uniform as if she were something holy. She found her way to a memorial in the center of the city. It was a simple structure, a wall of black stone with names carved into it. Millions of names. Everyone who had died in the compliance action. Everyone who would never see what their world had become. A young Velithian approached her. A child, barely half-grown, with bright, curious eyes. The child held something in her small hands. "You are the human," the child said. "The one who saved us." "I am one of them," Tanaka said. "There were many. My grandmother talks about you. She was there when the fire stopped. She saw your ship appear in the sky. She says you are the reason I exist." Tanaka did not know what to say to that. She had never gotten used to being thanked for doing what seemed like the obvious right thing. The child held out her gift. It was a drawing on rough paper, crude lines and simple colors. But the image was clear. A human ship, dark and angular, blocking out the fire that fell from above. Around the ship, dozens of Velithian figures looked up with hope. "I made this for you," the child said. "My grandmother told me the story and I wanted you to have it." Tanaka took the drawing. Her hands were steady, but something in her chest felt tight. "Thank you," she said. "I will keep it always." The child smiled and ran off to join her family. Tanaka watched her go. A child who would never have existed if things had happened differently. A future that was only possible because humanity had chosen to act. She looked at the memorial wall. So many names, so many people who had not survived to see this moment. She wished she could have saved them too. She wished she had acted sooner, faster, better, but she had done what she could. And sometimes, that was enough. Tanaka left the memorial and walked back toward the spaceport. She had other duties, other responsibilities. The galaxy was still changing, still adjusting to the new reality. There was much work to be done, but for a moment, standing on a world that had nearly died and was now alive with hope, she allowed herself to feel something like peace. The galaxy had believed for millennia that strength meant the willingness to destroy. They had not considered that true strength might be the willingness to protect and the capability to enforce that protection absolutely. Humanity had watched from the darkness for 200 years, learning a simple truth. The universe was not kind, but that did not mean they could not be. The stars were the same as they had always been, cold and distant and uncaring. But the people who lived beneath them were different now. They knew that cruelty was not inevitable. They knew that power did not have to mean domination. They knew that even in a harsh universe, it was possible to choose kindness. That was the legacy humanity had brought to the galaxy. Not conquest, not empire,